So I'm glad that you made this movie because it's with my colleague David Grand's story. But how did you plan for this to be your last film? How did you envision it? Why this film? Why this story?
I think I made a mistake in talking about retirement because I think that distorted the spotlight away from the people that deserved it, which was David Lowery and the cast and the story. It would have been much better if I had just slipped quietly out of acting into something else. Yeah. So I think that was a mistake, and I'm sorry about that.
You've played some outlaws in your time.
I'm very attracted to outlaws.
Why is that?
I think it has to do with my sensibility, and I think it had to do with just how I was raised and from the time I was a little kid on. I didn't ever want to break the law, but I didn't want to be restricted by the law. I was always wanting to be just slightly outside where I had a sense of freedom that was not permitted if you were too much inside the law. And so I think once I was able to do anything about that, I liked the idea of portraying outlaws.
What's the outlaw canon of Robert Redford? Obviously, Sundance Kid. I mean, there's a number of them, aren't there?
If you go down the road, I think The Sting. There are other examples.
Now, this guy robs banks almost obsessively. He feels alive.
Exactly.
When he robs banks.
Yes.
And you think you're going to get a kind of soppy end where he finds love and reform, but not quite. You admire him?
Obviously I did, because I'm playing him, you know. I'm egocentric in that regard, but I also think he was just an extraordinary character, because normally if you think of a villain, you think of people robbing banks, you think of villains that look like villains, act like villains, and carry the expression of villains. But this guy was having a good time. He was just having a good time. And somebody said, well, do you do this for a living? Is this why you do this? You do it for a living? He says, no, I do it because I'm living. I'm just living. And so he did it because he just loved doing it, you know, and he always got caught, always got sent to prison, always escaped.
Yeah, he wasn't particularly great at it.
No, that's why he got caught, you know. And then he went to prison 17 times.
Yeah.
And escaped 17 times. So my gut was telling me, wait a minute, this guy is he's so loose in the first part of this when he's robbing banks and he gets caught, but what he must really love is the idea of escaping.
Yeah.
That must have been his real MO, you know.
Tell me about how you fasten on to a project like this. How do you what do you choose? You're offered things all the time throughout your career. You've had I think it's fair to say, a blessed career. And what do you find just not up your alley, and what do you search for from the time you were in your 20s?
Well, it starts with story. It's the most important thing, story, for me. And I think that one of the disadvantages are as new technology has increased and it's made possible special effects in film, you see a lot of the movement, a lot of the attention going in that direction for special effects. And sometimes it's at the cost of a story. So because a lot of filmmakers, once they can use high tech to do special effects, they get focused on that. So there's a lot of razzle-dazzle. But sometimes it's like eating candy. You come out of a theater and you say, well, that was really dazzling to watch, but where was the story?
Well, do you think that an era is coming to a close? Because we hear over and over again that the studio system and the ability for studios to make movies that aren't about a franchise, a superhero, you know the categories, that are kind of made for either 15-year-olds or have come out of comic books. The ability to make a movie like this, to get financing for it, is really rough. And it's harder. It's much harder to get to yes in the films, and a lot of talented people are moving their talents over to television. Do you think your career would have been more in television or in another medium had it come at a much later time?
No, because I did a lot of television I think a lot of people are not aware of. For example, all through the 60s and much of the 70s, I was just television. I did a lot of Twilight Zones and Alfred Hitchcocks and so forth. And I loved it. I loved because it was, you didn't have a lot, you had to act on your feet. You had to move quickly. But for me, the most important thing was as special effects increased, as technology went in that direction, and a lot of the young filmmakers got almost hypnotized by it, I began to see films lose the value of story and spend more of the time on razzle-dazzle. The studio system, which ran everything for a while, is interested in one thing, that's profit, money. And I understand that. I was part of that. But I began to see that there were other stories to be told. There were other ideas out there that weren't being given a chance. That's what led to starting Sundance for the independent film.
At what point did you think, I can do that? I can be an actor, which is different from a movie star. I can be an actor, and then the other thing might come. What was the moment in your career where you felt that you had passed through a door?
Probably early 60s, because I started out wanting to be an artist. Movies were something I just went and looked at for a while, but I didn't pay that much attention to them. And then I went to Europe to study art, and somewhere in the process, I lost that. I lost that desire. And then film came into it kind of naturally, starting with television. And because television was live, it was this live feeling you had. Also, you're with other people. You're with other people, and you can interact with the energy of someone else.
I wonder what relationship you have to your own physical appearance.
I had freckles. I had a lot of hair that was totally out of control, and so if anything, I was more made fun of. It was very hard.
I'm not sure I believe that.
Well, no, made fun of in a fun, good way,
As you matured as an actor, what became easier? What became more difficult? What's the hardest part of being an actor now that you're 82? And what became less of a burden?
You outgrow that business about how you look, and it's more about what you do with who you are. And that felt much more comfortable for me, to be judged by what I did rather than what I look like. And so that's been a blessing in a sense.
What do you feel that were the risky moments that?
Well, playing a different kind of character that was maybe could be viewed as really negative,
For example?
Well, I guess the most recent one is the Old Man with the Gun, although it's too lighthearted to be.
But we like him.
He
can rob as many banks as we want.
So it's not a good example. It's not a good
You're charming us as much as you're charming Sissy Spacek.
I'm at a point now where I can really be judged for the work that I do, not how I appear. And so therefore, I think some of the films that I did recently were more being judged on that basis rather than how I looked.
So then why stop?
Yeah.
Has acting become difficult in some way?
I just feel that I've done that, and I've been doing that since I was 21. That's a long time, and I've had a wonderful time. It's been a great time. But I just felt it was time to move on and no longer be judged by this thing that would not permit me to move to that thing. And so therefore, I'm in the process of transitioning now.
So you've been in any number of political films. We are sitting here at a really bizarre political time. But we've had one actor as president in Ronald Reagan. We've got another one in Donald Trump. What do you make of him purely as a performer?
Poor one. He would fail as a performer. His flaws are so transparent.
How do you mean?
Unless you're paying no attention, his flaws are so transparent. I mean, almost comical in certain. What he considers strong and good transmit as something else, and so to me that's painfully obvious. And as a result, I don't think it's going to last. I really don't. And I think.
What do you mean it won't last?
I don't think
his bubble's going to burst in some way.
Yes, I do. I do believe that. And when, I don't know. I think it will.
But I'm guessing you were not an admirer from the get-go. But he won, and he had a top-rated television show. So somebody must have thought he was a great performer.
Well, somebody did, but not me.
Yeah.
In other words, I didn't watch that show. I can only judge what I saw when he stepped forward to run for president.
What do you fear most about the Trump moment politically?
Well, that he's in his own personal bubble. He doesn't see his own flaws, and if they were presented to him, he just wouldn't accept them. It's a very, very strong ego that doesn't permit any outside stuff to come in, and I think that's dangerous for the country because it lacks humility.
You've been an environmentalist for decades. Tell me about your concern about that now in the moment that we're in.
We'll always work towards the environment. I always do whatever I can. But then also moving towards documentaries and directing. I love documentaries. It's kind of long-form journalism, as I said about the New Yorker.
See, we're not going to see you on a porch whittling away. You're not retirement.
No, I'm not going to be. There's going to be no porch in my house.
Well, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.